Welcome back to Rect America. This is the Hunter, and I'm delighted to have my good friend, Dr. Jimmy Jarvis, who's going to talk to us this morning. Dr. Jimmy, how you doing?
Doing okay today. It's it's been busy, and I'm not alone in that respect. But thanks for asking.
Yes. COVID-19 is something else. Any developments in terms of the whole dealing with this COVID-19 business that you want to talk about or want to share? Get us started.
Well, just just grateful that those I'm involved with have not tested positive, have not been infected, at least not directly. But best wishes to all the folks on the front line. I know there's a lot of research going on to come up with some solutions for this as well. So I wish those scientists good prospects with all that they're doing. Thanks.
And how are things going for you generally? I mean, what's your general state of mind?
Well,
where you at? Where you at, man?
It's most of me is here. It's each day has brought a new normal. So that means that there is a lot of change going on. Routine things that used to be routine are not anymore. So it's necessary to attempt to establish new routines, but always in the back of my mind, and I keep forgetting this, is that this routine might change tomorrow. so, so it's a bit disorienting, and so I maintain those routines that I can, and try to be as flexible as I can when the situation changes, and it's changing daily. So
Amen
that's
to that.
that's my work. I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Yeah,
But that's how it
yeah,
appears to me.
yeah. If being towards not being alone, isn't this all a part of our human struggle?
Mhm. Very much so. And in fact, it I think brings it home for many of us at least. And again, it puts the entire community, shall I suggest, under stress. And now, how do we react under stress? Some of us handle it very well, but they're that's a judgment statement right there. Um, Many people handle it. I know how I used to handle it before recovery. Um, this looks like an opportunity to to go to extremes. This would be an opportunity to work very, very hard and get a lot done. But I would work past the point of exhaustion. This would be a perfect opportunity to attempt to be a hero.
Mm. Is you use the word extremes, and certainly from our prior conversations, you're being one. I'll say from your lips to our ears, you defined one of your addictions as being a workaholic. So is this also in terms of what's covered under the heading of extremes? Does that include other acting out behaviors? Could that include other acting out behaviors?
Well, it certainly
Might that
could.
include other acting out behaviors?
That it would include all acting out behaviors. The work addiction was a setup for the sex addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So after I had done some exceptionally extensive and in my mind in those days good work, then I would feel entitled to have some sort of reward, if you will. The two addictions would just play off of each other. One would set me up for the other, and then when I had the incomprehensible demoralization from acting out in the other behavior, I would go back to work to numb the feelings I had about acting out, and I'd work and work and work and work and work until I felt entitled again, and forgetting everything that had happened before, I would go act out. So there would be not only risky behavior in the work addiction, but I would go for personal encounters, even under a situation like this. I mean, if AIDS didn't stop me, nor this wouldn't stop me either.
Right, right. So now, what's going on? Is this business triggering for you in any respect? No.
Yes, it is. Not heavily so, but it is. I've described myself as an old retired war horse, and those that survived serious conflict battles in history, whether it's First World War, Civil War, Crimean War, you go back further and further in history, and those war horses, like their owners and masters and riders, would retire, those who survived. But there were various reports that when a war horse heard thunder, he would go through his preparation routine for going to battle. And I could feel that sort of thing stirring up in me, like an old war horse.
Hmm. And staying with that motif. So what is thunder? How does thunder affect you?
With the dire warnings of the media, with the scenes of crowded wards in hospitals and all the testing facilities, with the doctors and nurses working night and day, all of this is saying to me, well, I should jump back in. I should be part of the solution. If I'm not part of the solution, I must be part of the problem. And so I still have those old feelings come up. Those are old tapes. Those, I have to say, it goes back to earlier days, and I've learned to hear them, acknowledge them, and simply say a prayer over them. I don't have to do those things.
We talk about our demons, our addictions, our cast of characters. So when you say that, you hear the voices, the promptings. Is it that easy to turn it off? Is that easy? I mean, is
okay.
Is that?
Well,
Talk about that for us.
Okay. Well, to turn it off, no. To turn it down, yes. There's a difference.
Good catch. Yeah.
They don't turn off, but having done the personal work that I've done, they're not a torment to me. In my addictions, the torment would be present and growing until I proceeded with whatever I felt was necessary to accomplish at that point.
Talk about some of that work.
Let's see. Well,
what's some of that work look like?
It looks like psychotherapy. It looks like 12-step work. There's a combination. It was necessary for me to attempt multiple approaches at my issues. I have done a considerable amount of family of origin work where I examine my own past, the past of my parents and of their parents, and where I could of the parents even before them. Looking at patterns that have and how they've affected each of us, recognizing we each have different personalities, different traits, different skill sets, different histories, and yet when viewed through the lens of the family of origin work, it's possible to see patterns, begin to recognize them, and to see how they manifest in different people, how it affected their behavior and their successes and their failures, and in turn, being able to look at it in people that I know personally, I then apply that work to myself as well and look for the patterns, look for how I've been affected, whether that was with parents or grandparents, or with peers, or in other social situations, and recalling with the help of therapists what my mindset was at different points in my life. And in the process of doing that, recognizing work that I had left uncompleted. Oftentimes, that work went uncompleted when I chose instead to act out in one way or another. As I like to say, I'm doomed to repeat what I do not complete. So the personal work that I was doing was allowing me to complete some of these unresolved issues and phases in my life.
If you take a moment, if we certainly have time, can you make that practical for us in terms of, you laid out a process there. Could you walk us back through that and with a specific behavior that you've worked on, and it take us through how, apply what you just said to a specific behavior and how you've worked on that behavior, working that process? Could you do that for us? Is that
I can at least start and try.
Okay. So, and if you need a minute to catch it, kind of, like I'm catching you off, but if
you've provided a little space here, so I'm just going to go with one of the more salient ones.
Okay, thank you.
Which and now more are occurring to me, but let me try to focus on one. I know that one of the senses I had early in my life. I'll go to some of the facts. As a young child, my family, which was my father, mother, myself, and my brother, is a nuclear family of 4, moved 11 times by the time I was 10 years old. So we would. Some of those were even before my conscious memory of them, but those that I could remember, it was I had a tough time beginning to make friends again. I was young for my age in the classes that I was going into. I was a good student and apparently pretty bright, and so I was pushed ahead academically. So I was kind of shy, kind of small for my age, and loneliness was definitely a feeling that I learned about pretty early. And I remember a particular occasion where we had just moved into a new house. I was 4.5, I think. And underfoot is what I make up. My parents were still unwrapping things, trying to put things away. Mm-hmm. And they told me to go outside and find some new friends. Mm.
Mm.
Go outside and find some new friends. I was 4.5.
Wow.
I had a new bike. This was a new neighborhood. I didn't know anybody. I went
Mm.
outside because I was, if nothing else, a dutiful child,
Mm.
at least
Mm.
from about 4 on. I
Okay.
went outside. I still remember
Wow.
looking at 2 trees by the side of the driveway and vowing to myself never to feel that lonely again.
Mm.
I carried that vow for 50 years
Wow.
until it came up in session, and I could comfort the notion of the little child in me so I wouldn't feel so alone. The technical term for this is reparenting. Speaking of, and it follows on my theme of we we are doomed to repeat what we cannot complete. It was
So that
important for me to recognize the feeling that the young child had, the memory of it, and to work through with the therapist how to soothe myself and recognize that, okay, that was then, this is now. That child, it was safe, has grown up since then, and is fine. So I didn't have to carry that vow and the covered feeling after that.
if you could, can you talk about how that child,
Mm.
you then attempted to make good on that vow?
Yeah.
What, yeah.
Well, and that's where the addictions come in, because I would I would have lonely times, but I would stay busy so I wouldn't feel that feeling. Again,
Okay.
I vowed to myself, and I was making sure that I would not feel that feeling. Well, what could I do? Well, I could stay very busy,
Okay.
and very busy looked like schoolwork, and I get rewarded for that.
Okay.
And whether it was model building, reading, I needed to find a way to stay out of that feeling.
In
And
that it good.
ultimately, it led to obsessive patterns of work, and then trying to find some relief to the work. And when I encountered sexually related materials, and again, back then it was Stone Age hieroglyphics, stone tablets with
Mhm.
Figurines on them. No,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were up to Gutenberg at least by the
Yeah.
time I was
Yeah.
11. So,
Yeah.
and we moved forward with sex addiction.
So, if we're understanding, so the vow taken at 4.5 moves forward to 11, and now we are beginning to act out sexually and related to that vow never to be lonely again. Is that what we're
Yes, it was one of the it was certainly one of the drivers, not the only one. Like I say, the obsessive working was in place, at least to some extent. That didn't really blow up. That one didn't really blow up until my parents' divorce. I shared some of that in the first
Mhm.
session. Um, but that pattern was already there, and again, I was casting about for further forms of relief. So,
Mhm. And this casting about, we're what age are we at? What age are we talking?
well, again, 11 is when I found sex. Um, I, I I attempted to drink heavily, but that also didn't start until about the time of my parents' divorce, 15, 16, and that wasn't working for me. So,
Mhm. And so finding
mhm,
sexual outlets with through materials, with people,
mhm.
at as early as age 15.
Yes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
short form, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of fear associated with that, because I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I liked it, and I was going to find ways to do it. yeah. And it progressed from pornography to prostitutes and to escorts and modeling studios and massage parlors and like that.
Mhm. What one of the things that we talked about, Dr. Jimmy, last time was some in here somewhere issues related to sexual identity. Did that begin? Where does that connect to this period of time in your life as well?
Really not. No, that's a later development.
Mm-hmm.
As I was not getting the results that I wasn't feeling satisfied with the sexual encounters that I was having in my 20s and 30s, and so later in my 40s, I just started casting about for more. And so, trying new and different things. It was once again it masked what I didn't want to feel with other feelings. It was it was there was fear, there was thrill of it, and it was another form of being extreme in my acting out behaviors.
Going back to that vow, were there other vows that you also were driving you? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
4.5 never been.
Mm-hmm.
What other vows have surfaced by the time you got to that
Well,
age? What
well,
other
there
vows?
was yeah, there was an earlier one. So
What was that?
remember, I've been at this for 15 years, so I've had time to uncover a lot. Um,
Okay.
I was
Do share.
thank you. I was in a counseling session with my partner, and part of the exercise was to get an understanding of what our personal space looked like. And to do that, the counselor directs the couple to place their chairs a certain distance from each other. And when we did that, I was very careful to make sure my chair was as close to my partner's as possible. Knees touching, absolutely as close as possible. And some people do this where their chairs are the opposite side of the room. That's how they felt safe with each other. Well, I felt safe when we were right up against each other. And the therapist asked me directly, so what's that about? I said, well, if I'm this close, she can't hit me. The next question was, how old do you feel? And my answer was 3. And what that was about was not about my partner. It was about my angry mother, at that point 23-year-old, who was raging at us boys about something. I don't know. I don't remember what, and doesn't matter. But by lunging into her, I was ducking under her hits.
Gotcha.
She couldn't hit me.
Mm.
So it was 3 years of therapy after that to work on that situation for me. And again, I bring this up dispassionately, I hope fairly articulately at the moment. But there was a lot of emotion tied up with that. But, and again, part of my work is recognizing that, my parents have been who they've been. And I don't believe they intended to cause 50 years of misery, by one raging event, for example, or in that case, 60 years, 58 years. But these effects are things that I've been able to unearth articulate and work on. And it's not, at first it's not easy work, but at the same time it's important to have a seasoned guide work through that personal trauma work with me, so that I can put it to rest.
So Dr. Jimmy, is 3 in that experience your earliest childhood memory?
Yes, everything else is related to me in humorous anecdotes by parents or other older relatives. So I think that's the best way to put it.
And as you wherever you want to jump, if you want to go to 11, wherever you want to, but as you come forward, that I'll use your term. The little boy, the child in you as a child, when you're in your addiction, I don't want to use the term like that. When your addiction is triggered and you're doing your thing, so to speak, is that the little boy in you that takes over? Who's acting out? I guess, but that maybe that's, I could put it that way. What I want to know is when you do you feel that that's the little boy in you acting out? Who's that who's doing that? Who's doing the acting out?
I would say that's more the teenager. Okay. That's you. That's really, that's me as a teenager, if you will, just attempting to, what am I? Well, boy, that's a different mentality. It's definitely an adolescent mentality. And I have a lot of blinders on at that point, certainly, brackets, if you will.
Okay. But that's the adolescent. That's the teenage you engaging in the sexual behavior and doing these things.
It's the teenage me who did 2 years of coursework in 1 year, all at the same time, got 2 high school diplomas and overachieved and had to reward himself.
And when that's you, the teenage you, and then what came next?
What came next? Well, I kept getting rewarded for excessive amounts of work. Again, I learned some things and was able to craft a number of careers. So was successfully rewarded for my efforts. At the same time, again, I had a number of personal activities. The addict mind is interesting to me because I'm not always in it. I'm in it part of the time, and then I'm not in it. And then I'm in it part of the time, then I'm not in it. And so once I acted out, in fact, I wanted to get away from that mindset, so I would turn back to, it's a pejorative term, I'll say other activities of just living my life. So I was dating my partner from the age of 16 to 24 when we got married. I was working overseas, and my partner was teaching locally, doing research, and indeed, we ultimately we had a child in our early 30s together. So, but again, I'm really of two minds during this period of my life, and I would work very, very hard at what I was doing in some very difficult times. So, like I say, the times today we're in difficult times at the moment with COVID-19 and whatnot, but with what was happening in my locale in, say, the mid 80s, with the local economy tanking completely and organizations going bankrupt and being destroyed and moving on, and how I played roles in helping survivors through that process. It was a great time to be a workaholic.
You're this being of two minds, and is what is that alternating between two minds? What's that like? What does that feel like? What is that to those who might be dealing with don't know they're doing that? So can you help the audience?
It's a question of how to describe it.
Yeah, can you describe that for us?
Well, that's
operating with two minds.
I have different voices of my own talking to myself, if you will, a committee in my head, if you will.
Okay.
And so I hear different suggestions in my head. What should I do next? What should I do about this situation? So I talk to myself, problem solve that way, and I work through certain things. But at the same time, I'll also have some suggestions that wouldn't it be a good time to, engage in certain activities, whether it was legitimate or acting out or whatever it was. Just suggestions to play some music, or to take on some other activity. So, but that would lead to whether it was legitimate activity or acting out behavior. There would be a choice point where I would decide that I had put up with enough stress in the regular part of my life where I needed to just drop out for a while. So back in the day, 60s, 70s, I'm trying to remember some of the expressions. This is from baby boomers a bit older than me. And now I can't remember the exact expression, but basically it would tune out from the regular world, it drop out from it for a bit, and then turn on with psychedelic drugs or music or something like that. So anyway, it was kind of my version of that.
Yeah, let's bring our time today to a positive close here. So, and we'll revisit. We're talking about the committee in the mind.
Yes.
So the committee in the mind and making decisions, and certainly based on what you shared, that committee can come to some very crisis oriented or maybe downward spiraling decisions.
Certainly.
But what's some positive decisions that whoever controlled the committee made that from that period in your life up to today, what's some positive that came from decisions that committee made about how to handle the situation?
Well, a few occur to me.
Okay, please share.
So, for example, when I put my partner into the hospital with sexually transmitted disease as a result of my acting out, I'd spent a considerable amount of time up to that point denying my behavior, gaslighting my partner, suggesting that my partner was somehow delusional to think that I was engaging in sexual acting out behaviors with having sex with other people, things like that, when in fact she was right all along. And but having that consequence shocked me into coming to the conclusion that I needed to get real with my partner, for example, that I needed to fess up, so to speak. And I started being honest about what I'd been doing for, by that point, 35 years.
Wow.
So there's one. Another one has to do with our daughter. Several months later, I realized I was doing what I had been doing for a number of years, which was getting really frustrated and raging at her for one thing or another. And of course, she was 16 at the time, so I had plenty to, it was a target-rich environment, so to speak, for a parent.
Right.
But I caught, again, just the committee in my head said, wait a minute, isn't this a setup? And I caught myself and started acknowledging to my daughter that no, my behavior, that raging behavior, was out of bounds. I may have had a point to it, but my method was all wrong. And those are instances where, once again, and those are the decision points. There are things that lead up to decision points, of course, but we're asking about the positive fruits of the committee, so to speak.
Yeah.
And as a result of some of the work I was doing personally, I could get to the point where somebody on the committee could say, wait a minute, and that could re-engage a more thoughtful cognitive process and get me out of patterns which had been so destructive for so long. Those are
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jimmy. You've graced us, and you're sharing your authenticity, and you're getting real.
I'm working on it.
The Rec to America audience appreciates it.
Hopefully. Thank you, Hunter. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, you blessed us. Okay, you be well, man. Till next time. Okay.
Till next time.
We appreciate it. Appreciate you, man. Take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
Practice social distancing.
All over it, so to speak.
All right, baby. Hunter out.